Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the world's most complex stories, pull them apart, and extract the precise, actionable knowledge you need. Today, we are taking on the ultimate cold case, the Norse creation myth. We're going back to a time before the gods, before the stars, before time itself had any meaning, really. Back into a chaos so complete it required this shocking, fundamental act of violence to bring forth the world we know. This is truly the origin story for the entire Norse worldview.
That's absolutely right. I mean, when we look at foundational myths, the Norse creation narrative, it really stands out. It stands out because it just completely rejects the idea of a gentle beginning.
Right. No quiet garden, no peaceful void.
No, it begins with absolute chaotic opposition. You've got this radical cold mist on one side and then searing fire on the other, and just a vast yawning void between them. The sources you provided, they give us this visceral, almost anatomical guide to how existence was literally built.
So our mission today is very specific. We are tracing the journey from absolute nothingness, this formless void, Ginnungagap, to a functional, inhabited world, Midgard.
We need to follow the birth and then, crucially, the death of the colossal ancestor giant, Ymir. And we're going to track every single ingredient down to the brains and the eyelashes that was used in the resulting cosmic construction. And then finally, we'll get to the birth of humanity.
Exactly. And this isn't a story of some, divine plan unfolding gently. It's a story of forced material construction.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before there was Earth, before there was any single thing we recognize as a world, the sources tell us there was just this radical, fundamental contrast at the very core of existence. Cold mist and searing fire.
We have to start at what you could call the ultimate zero point. This is before the universe had any structure whatsoever. The sources are so precise about this. No earth, no heavens, no stars, no sky existed.
Nothing.
Instead, you're presented with these two intensely contrasted realms, and they're separated by a massive empty gap. And this dichotomy, it isn't just setting the scene, it defines the entire universe going forward. Okay, so let's start with the north. We find this dark world, Niflheim. And when the source says it's colder than cold, it's really trying to emphasize that this realm is the essence of anti-life.
It really is. Niflheim is the world of mist and cold. It's a place that's perpetually cloaked in this murky, heavy fog. It's formless. It's entirely lacking in light.
So you can't see anything.
You can't see the sky. You can't see the ground. It's just murk. But the key to the Norse cosmology here is that Niflheim isn't inert. It's not just a block of ice. It's a source of active elemental danger.
And that danger comes in the form of 11 poisonous rivers. That detail is incredibly specific. Why 11, and why do they have to be poisonous?
The detail of the 11 poisonous rivers, the Elavagar, it's crucial. It gives the cold realm a dynamism that, mere ice just wouldn't have.
It's active.
It's very active. These rivers cut through the mist, and they all spring from a single central source, this unbelievably potent well called Hvergelmir.
Which translates to the roaring maelstrom, right?
Yep, the roaring maelstrom. So you should think of Hvergelmir not just as a well, but as a kind of cosmological power plant of cold, dark energy.
Right.
The water is poisonous. I mean, literally toxic and freezing. So Niflheim is not a place of quiet, frozen stillness. It's an active, dark generator of corrosive flow. And when we later discuss how existence begins, it's these poisoned waters that provide the raw material for chaos.
That makes the interaction that follows so much more dangerous. So if the north is this active, dark poison, the south, Muspel, is the total inverse. It's the world of unending incandescent fire.
Muspel is the elemental opposite in every conceivable way. Where Niflheim is gray and frozen, Muspel is just pure, overwhelming light. It's glowing and burning eternally.
What did the sources say it's like?
They describe it as an incandescent chaos. So you've got roaring heat, molten lava, spurting heat, burning embers. There's no solid earth or sky there, just pure energy. So if Niflheim represents the corrosive stagnation of cold, Muspel represents the destructive energy of heat.
And Muspel has a sentinel, a guardian who stands at the edge of the fire. An entity who is, arguably the most terrifying pre-creation being of all.
That would be Surt. Surtur, whose name means the Black One. And he existed before the gods themselves.
Before Odin.
Way before. He stands vigil at the edge of the flame, and he's holding a flaming sword. The source makes it clear that he has absolute command over that realm. He is primordial fire personified. He doesn't just, tend the flame. He is the flame, an ancient, unstoppable force.
What's so fascinating here, and what gives Muspel this deep significance, is that his existence is tied not just to the ultimate beginning, but also to the end of all things.
Yes, and that connection is fundamental to the Norse perception of time and fate. Surtur's specific and terrifying role is sealed in destiny. He is the ultimate instrument of destruction.
So he had a job to do.
A very specific one. It is prophesied that he will only leave his station at Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. He will burst forth from Muspel with his flaming sword, he will burn the world, and he will ensure that the gods, even Odin, fall before him.
Wow.
So his presence at the beginning is this constant elemental reminder that fiery destruction isn't some outside threat. It's an innate elemental force built right into the structure of the cosmos itself. It's just waiting for its moment to return.
So if you have these two extreme, deadly realms, poisonous ice and incandescent fire in opposition, they define the space between them. The yawning gap, Ginnungagap.
Ginnungagap. It literally means yawning void. It's the empty place of nothingness, without form or direction.
But it's not a peaceful nothingness.
Not at all. Philosophically, it differs from a lot of other creation voids in that it's not simply an absence. It's a space that's defined by the tension of the two forces flanking it. But it wasn't destined to remain empty, though. This is the synthesis zone. It's the crucible where the first building materials accumulated.
But how does that happen? How does the poison ice move into the gap to become a material?
This is where you get the sort of physics of the myth taking over. The poisonous rivers, the Elivagar from Niflheim, they flowed constantly into Ginnungagap. And in the deeper, colder parts of the void, these rivers, they slowly solidified over these immense stretches of time. They created huge, deep layers of ice and immense glaciers. The void was slowly being filled by frozen, toxic water.
Okay, that sounds like a recipe for a permanent frozen wasteland. But the sources describe a melting catalyst. This is where that radical opposition becomes generative.
That's the crucial interaction. The great masses of ice and solidified poison flowed southward until they began to meet the blazing heat radiating from Muspel.
So they finally touch.
They touch. And sparks, heat, and embers from Muspel met the ice, creating this constant friction and warmth. And this clash of elemental forces, deadly cold and deadly fire, it produced something entirely unexpected.
Which was?
A layer of warm, gentle winds and a moist atmosphere above the ice. And it was described as being as gentle and comfortable as a spring day. Life is born right where these deadly, radical oppositions meet, and they neutralize each other just enough to become temperate.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the foundation of the Norse world isn't static unity, it's dynamic tension. The possibility of life exists only in that narrow, temporary band between overwhelming cold and overwhelming heat.
It raises an important question about stability, doesn't it? If the environment is literally the result of two eternal destructive forces fighting, then stability is always temporary.
It's a stalemate.
It's a stalemate. The mild atmosphere, the cradle of creation, is dependent on a constant, uneasy balance.
And it is in those melting waters, at that precise point of elemental equilibrium, that life finally appears. We get the birth of the first being, Ymir.
Yes, in that thaw, the primal creative force took form. And the source is emphatic about the scale of this entity. It was a creature bigger than worlds, huger than any giant there will be or has ever been.
That's a big statement.
It is. This was Ymir, the ancestor of all living things. Well, at least the monstrous ones.
The description of Ymir is really specific, almost philosophically dense. They call him the ancestor, yet he is neither male nor female.
And you have to focus on that paradox. The source explicitly states Ymir was neither male nor female, but both at the same time.
Primal androgyny.
Exactly. This is incredibly significant. In mythological terms, it signifies a complete, self-contained origin. Ymir embodies the totality of the chaotic, untamed raw material of the universe. He doesn't need external means to procreate. He is a force of spontaneous, self-generating creation. He's the source of all the Jötnar, the giants.
But this enormous being needed sustenance to grow to his world-encompassing size, and the meltwater created not just the giant, but also the second primal life form, the enormous cow Audhumla.
Audhumla, the nourisher. She emerged from the ice right alongside Ymir, and she was equally vast, described as more enormous than the mind could hold.
And her function was just to feed Ymir.
Her function was purely generative and sustaining. Her milk flowed like 4 immense rivers from her udders, and this was the sole source of nourishment for Ymir. Without the cow, the giant could not have grown to the necessary scale for world building.
And the cow, in turn, sustained herself in a highly unusual way, by licking the salty blocks of ice. And that licking process, that's what eventually brings forth the gods themselves, establishing the other side of the cosmic family tree.
That is one of the most remarkable and I think visually distinct parts of this myth. Audhumla, with her enormous pink tongue, was licking these salty ice blocks for sustenance. And as she licked, she slowly revealed the shape of a man trapped within the ice.
Gooey.
This was Buri, the ancestor of the gods.
And it wasn't a sudden, instantaneous birth. It was a slow, deliberate unveiling over 3 full days.
Exactly. And that pacing is a narrative choice that contrasts so sharply with the chaos surrounding them. On day 1, after the cow's laborious licking, only a man's hair appeared from the ice.
Just the hair?
Just the hair. Day 2, his entire head was revealed. And then finally on day 3, the shape of a whole powerful man, Buri, was revealed. This slow, geological, almost salivary creation process suggests the nascent order and deliberation inherent in the divine lineage. It sets them apart from the spontaneous chaos of the giants.
Right. That distinction, slow, deliberate creation versus instantaneous, sprawling chaos, is a key insight into why the conflict between gods and giants is so inevitable. Because while Buri was being painstakingly licked into existence, Ymir was continuing his spontaneous, chaotic procreation.
And while Ymir slept in a sweat of vastness, it erupted from him. This is where the lineage of the giants truly begin.
So give us the chaotic family tree that springs directly from Ymir.
So while Ymir slept, life erupted in this highly unusual, almost accidental fashion. First, from beneath Ymir's left armpit, a male and a female giant were born.
Just from his armpit?
Not through traditional reproduction, no, just spontaneously from sweat and heat. And simultaneously, a terrifying 6-headed giant sprang forth from the giant's legs. All subsequent giants, the Jötnar, the forces of chaos that will eternally oppose the gods, they're all descended from these 3 terrifying accidental children. Their lineage is born of sprawling, uncontrolled fecundity.
Meanwhile, on the divine side, Buri, the man licked from the ice, is now active. And the lineage gets complicated very quickly. Buri marries a giantess.
Yes, Buri marries a giantess from this freshly formed, spontaneous generation of giants. This union produces a son named Bor. And Bor, in turn, marries Besla, who was herself the daughter of a giant.
This is a crucial moment.
The crucial moment of synthesis. It is from the union of Bor and Besla, half-god and giantess, that the 3 primary creator gods are born, Odin, Vili, and Ve.
Wait, let's just pause on that for a second. This is incredibly important. Odin, Vili, and Ve, the primary architects and creators of the entire physical world and humanity, are themselves a mixed blood lineage. They are literally the product of gods and giants intermingling.
They're intertwined by blood from the very beginning. They're not these pure beings of order. They are cousins to the giants they will eventually slaughter.
Which is profound.
It is. It means that the conflict between order, the Aesir gods, and chaos, the Jötnar giants, is not just ideological or philosophical. It is a fundamental, eternal family feud. The creators and the destroyers are kin.
So if the creators have giant blood, does it inherently suggest that the order they are trying to establish is always vulnerable to chaos?
It absolutely raises that important question. I mean, you can look at Odin's very nature, his passion, his cunning, his occasionally extreme methods. You might see those as echoes of the wild, untamed giant blood in his ancestry. They weren't starting from zero. They were starting from a violent mixed heritage, which predisposes the cosmos to instability and conflict.
So we've established the players, the 3 brothers, Odin, Vili, and Ve, and the enormous chaotic ancestor, Ymir, whose spontaneous family just keeps growing. But at this point, they are all trapped.
Completely trapped in Ginnungagap. The 3 brothers have grown to maturity, but they're stuck in a vacuum, a non-place. It's situated between the unlivable searing flames of Muspel and the crushing, poisonous darkness of Niflheim. They might as well have been nowhere.
There's nothing to work with.
No sand, no soil, no sea, no sky, no stars. The gap was, as the source says, only an empty place waiting to be filled.
So it's not just a vacuum, it's a state of cosmological stagnation. They couldn't move forward, they couldn't go back.
Exactly. And the source emphasizes that the brothers looked around and they realized the necessity of action. They spoke of what was needful to do. The potential universe, all the raw material, the ice, the fire, the giant Ymir, it was all present. But it was locked in an unusable, chaotic form.
Which leads directly to the central, most violent act of the creation myth, the foundational event of the Norse universe, the killing of Ymir.
It was an act of terrible, absolute necessity, a primal sacrifice. Odin, Vili, and Ve, they chose to kill the colossal ancestor, giant Ymir. And the sources are absolutely unsparing in their justification. They say it had to be done. There was no other way to make the worlds.
That's incredible.
The creation of structured existence required the violent disassembly of the primal chaos. This was the death that made all life possible.
But if they are setting up order, their first act is, it's deicide. It's an act of genocide. Doesn't that fundamentally undermine Odin's claim to be a benevolent creator of order?
See, this is the critical insight. The Norse gods do not claim benevolence. They claim necessity.
You're pragmatists.
They are pragmatic builders. They understood that the existing state Ymir and the chaotic flow of giants was incompatible with the creation of a structured, functional world where gods could rule and humans could live. They choose order. But that order is born from a necessary evil, a radical act of violence that immediately sets the stage for eternal vengeance.
And the immediate result of that death was an immediate cosmic disaster for the giant race. The great flood of blood. The sheer scale of Ymir's body meant the resulting flow was catastrophic.
The scale is, it's unimaginable. When the three brothers killed Ymir, blood gushed out from the corpse in such unimaginable quantities. It created fountains as salt as the sea and gray as the oceans.
It wasn't a trickle.
Oh, no. This was a sudden, powerful, and immense flood. It was deep enough and powerful enough to sweep away and drown all the giants that had sprung forth from Ymir. It was the universe's first extinction event, a genocidal act designed to clear the slate for their new world order.
The drama of that moment, the sound, the fury, the sheer volume of this gray, salty blood filling the void, it must have been horrific.
It implies a terrifying period of intense geological chaos right after the murder. Imagine the noise as this ocean of blood rushed into the vast, silent void, instantly becoming the universe's first sea. The gods were standing in the gore of their ancestor, a testament to the cost of their creation. They had successfully eliminated their chaotic cousins.
But not quite all of them. There's a crucial detail that ensures the conflict does not end here. It ensures the giants survive to plague the gods for all time.
This is the seed of Ragnarok right here. A single exception prevented total extinction. Only Ymir's grandson, Bergelmir, and his wife survived. And the sources detail how they survived.
Oh.
They clambered onto a simple wooden box, some sources say a millstone, but here we see a wooden box that bore them like a boat.
So this small family line, Bergelmir and his wife, they watched their entire race drown in their own grandfather's blood. This sets the stage for 1,000 generations of antagonism.
Yes, all the subsequent feared giants, who become the eternal antagonists of the gods, are descended solely from this one pair. They are the survivors who carry the memory of the genocide. The entire history of conflict in the Norse world, all the way up to Ragnarok, is founded on the righteous vengeance of this single family line who are forced to float above the bloody remains of their ancestor.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire cosmos is founded on an act that demands eternal reprisal. The gods may have created order, but they simultaneously created their own doom.
The lure of the giants, the guarantee that chaos will always return, is embedded in that very first act of creation. The gods did what was necessary to live, but by doing so, they guaranteed they would never have peace. The cosmos is a countdown to the final battle from day one.
With the flood subsided and the chaos briefly contained, the focus shifts entirely to construction. And here's where it gets really interesting and incredibly visceral. They didn't just kill the giant, they turned him into the universe.
This is where the Norse cosmology becomes so intensely personal and material. The world is not created through abstract concepts or divine command. It is literally built, part by part, from the physical remains of the giant. The universe is a colossal corpse.
Let's detail these literal elements of creation, starting with the land itself, the ground beneath our feet.
The foundation of the world, the soil and the land, was made entirely from Ymir's flesh.
His flesh.
Everything soft, everything that holds roots and allows for growth, the fertile earth, is the decayed, vast musculature of the giant. Following that, the larger geographical features, the great structures of the world, the mountains and cliffs, were formed by piling up Ymir's enormous, massive bones.
So when a god or a human walks across the earth, they were walking on the flesh and the skeleton of the original ancestor. That's a constant physical reminder of the violence.
It is. It's a literal tomb we inhabit. And think about the smaller, granular parts of the landscape. What about the sand, the gravel, the pebbles we find everywhere?
What are they?
The sources note these smaller materials are Ymir's teeth and the fragments of bones that were shattered and crushed by Odin, Vili, and Ve during their creation battle. Every single pebble you pick up has a history of brutal foundational conflict.
And the most expansive feature of all, the water that defines our planet. the oceans that girdle the world.
Those were formed from Ymir's blood and his sweat.
All of it.
All of it. Imagine the volume of a giant, bigger than worlds. His circulatory system, his effluent, became the life-giving, all-encompassing oceans and seas. The water is inherently vast and gray and salty, reflecting its origin in vast quantities of gore.
Okay, so now they need a sky to dome over their new world, and they literally built the heavens using the giant's massive skull.
The sky is literally the inside of Ymir's skull, raised high above the earth. They needed stability, so they placed 4 dwarfs, Nordri, Sudri, Ostri, and Vestri, at the 4 corners of the skull to hold it up.
North, south, east, and west.
Exactly. So the creation of the sky, therefore, it relies on the labor of the dwarfs, and for celestial bodies.
Right. The light must come from somewhere, considering Niflheim is pure darkness.
The stars you see, the planets, the comets, these were the sparks that flew from the unending fires of Muspel. Odin and his brothers collected these incandescent embers, contained them, and affixed them to the inside of the skull sky, providing light and marking the passage of time.
So if we connect this to the larger philosophical implications, the material world is defined by this ongoing conflict. The ground is violence, the water is death, and the light is destructive fire contained.
That synthesis is key. The universe is an uneasy truce between the materials of chaos. The gods took destruction and forced it into a structure.
But perhaps the most provocative detail in the entire creation story concerns the clouds. They are mentioned briefly, but they carry enormous implications.
Absolutely. The clouds we see by day, floating and shifting in the sky, were once Ymir's brains.
His brains.
Yes. And this is a detail that moves the creation narrative beyond mere construction and into philosophy. The source emphasizes this by asking, who knows what thoughts they are thinking, even now?
As the expert, how do you synthesize that implication? It raises this really important question about whether the original giant is truly dead or if existence is perpetually haunted by him.
It suggests that existence itself is infused with a residual consciousness. The material world is not just inert matter. It is an ongoing thinking organism. If the clouds, which are constantly shifting, changing, and responsible for rain, storms, unpredictable weather, if they are the scattered remnants of Ymir's massive deceased brain, then every meteorological event might be an echo of Ymir's final colossal thoughts, or perhaps even a subconscious awareness of his own demise. It means the creator gods failed to fully vanquish the primal chaos. They merely internalized it. We live inside the trauma of the universe's first murder victim.
That is a staggering concept, that the physical world is simultaneously a monument and a tomb and potentially mind.
And it elevates the creation from mere construction to a kind of waking nightmare. We are not just living in the giant's body, we are living within his scattered thoughts.
So with the land, mountains, sea, and sky established, the gods had to set the boundaries for humanity. They established Midgard, the human realm.
The world was created as a flat disk, perpetually encircled by the sea, which was Ymir's blood. The gods knew the giants, having survived the flood, lived at the edges of the world, near the deepest seas and the primal chaos. They needed a protective enclosure for the life they planned to create in the middle.
And the material used for this defensive wall is, again, unexpectedly delicate.
To keep the hostile, vengeful giants at bay, Odin and his brothers constructed a protective palisade from Ymir's eyelashes.
His eyelashes.
They wove this fine defensive structure around the middle of the world, calling the space within the wall Midgard, which means middle enclosure or middle earth.
So Midgard, the realm of humanity, is defined by its fragility. It's a protective space, literally woven from the finest, softest part of the primal giant. And it's defending the core against the forces of chaos lurking at the edges.
It speaks volumes about the human condition in Norse myth. We exist in a beautiful, highly structured world built from bone and flesh. But our protection is the most delicate material imaginable. Eyelashes. We are safe, but perpetually vulnerable to the chaos, the Jötnar, waiting just beyond the border.
So Midgard was structurally complete. It was beautiful, organized, but it was uninhabited. The gods determined that a world is not complete until it is lived in.
An empty stage is not a world. Odin and his brothers, they wandered the shores admiring their handiwork, but they realized the cosmos was still incomplete. They needed life that was separate from the gods and the giants, a race that could inhabit this newly protected realm. So they turned their attention to finding the raw material for humanity.
And the material they found was humble and organic. 2 logs, sea-tossed and cast ashore on the rocky shingle at the edge of the newly formed sea.
The choice of logs, just found material, it reinforces that theme of pragmatic construction. But the choice of which logs is highly symbolic. It reflects the complementary nature of the first human pair.
The first log, which would become the man, was ashwood, or ask. What does the ash represent in the Norse world?
Ashwood, ask, is incredibly significant. The ash tree is the very foundation of the cosmos Yggdrasil. The world tree is an ash.
Ah, of course.
So the choice of ask symbolizes resilience, strength, and deep roots. It's described as handsome, carving well, and unlikely to split or crack. It's the ideal wood for tool handles, spear shafts, the wood of utility, strength, and cosmological stability.
And the second log, which became the woman, was elmwood, or embla.
Elmwood, embla, is often overlooked, but it's equally powerful. The elm tree is graceful, but its wood is hard and durable, suitable for the toughest planks and beams. It is the wood used for building fine halls and homes.
So strength and grace.
Exactly. Embla, therefore, represents the strength of establishment, the durability required to build a lasting civilization, and the grace to maintain it. The combination emphasizes that the first humans were created for balance, utility and action from ask, balanced by establishment and endurance from embla.
And the creation of Ask and Embla was a collaborative effort, showing the specific talents of all three brothers. It wasn't a single divine spark. It was a division of labor that brought about the complete human being.
It was a layered process, yes. It demonstrates that human existence requires these specific complementary contributions of the divine trio.
So first we have Odin's contribution.
Odin, as the eldest and most powerful, stood the logs upright and breathed life into them. The und, or breath of life. So they were no longer inanimate logs. Now they were alive. The essential animation was provided by the future All-Father.
But life alone isn't enough to make a functional person. They need purpose and intelligence.
And that came from Vili's contribution. Vili gave them will, the odor intelligence, and drive. Now they could not only move, but they could want. They could think, they could make choices. They were imbued with the cognitive ability and the ambition necessary to survive in Midgard.
And finally, V provided the finishing touches, sculpting the physical and sensory forms.
V carved them into the actual shape of people. He gave them the means to interact with the world they now inhabited. He gave them senses, ears to hear, eyes to see, and lips to speak.
And gender.
Yes. The source makes it clear that he defined their gender, carving male genitals on one and female on the other. The logs were now sentient, functional, gendered beings, ready to face the world.
It's interesting that the physical form and the gender distinction is the very last step. It implies that life and will are cosmologically more important than the physical shell.
It absolutely prioritizes the interior life, the breath and the will over the exterior form. The body is the vessel provided by V, but the essence of humanity is that divine spark breathed by Odin and the consciousness instilled by Vili.
And then the final practical details for their survival were provided.
Right, they were still naked on the beach, exposed to the chilly sea spray and the elements. So the gods provided clothes for warmth and cover against the harsh environment. They were then given their names. The man was named Ask, ash tree, and the woman Embla, elm.
And Ask and Embla stayed safely in Midgard, behind that wall of Ymir's eyelashes, becoming the progenitors of every human being who ever lived.
They are the foundation of our entire race. They were raised in the peace and safety the gods had violently carved out for them, protected by a boundary that defines our entire existence. Midgard, the middle ground, situated between the gods in Asgard and the chaotic edges in Jotunheimr.
This entire story, starting with the clash of ice and fire and ending with the creation of humanity, brings us back to Odin. It explains why he holds the title of All-Father, and this title isn't just based on raw power.
The title All-Father is earned on two critical and sometimes conflicting counts. First, he is the father of the gods, being the son of Bor. But crucially, he earned the title All-Father over mortals because he was the one who initiated life. He breathed the breath of life, the und, into Ask and Embla, the ancestors of all mortals. He is the life giver, even though his rise was contingent on being a killer of his own ancestor.
So, what does this all mean? If we synthesize this long, dramatic journey, we went from a cold and fire dichotomy, through the melting of ice, the violent sacrifice of the primal giant, and finally, the collaborative, detail-oriented construction of the physical world and humanity.
The core takeaway, I think, for you, for the learner, is this. The Norse cosmos is fundamentally sacrificial and inherently vengeful. Everything you see, everything you touch is the byproduct of immense violence and conflict.
Right.
The earth under your feet is Ymir's flesh, the mountains are his bones, and the seas are his blood. We exist in Midgard, a realm defined by this fragile protection, the eyelashes, constantly aware that the forces of chaos, the giants, are eternal. They're waiting at the borders, fueled by the memory of the genocide the gods committed to create us.
So the fundamental antagonism between the gods and the giants is not just an ideological battle. It is rooted in literal bloody vengeance. The foundation of the entire world is conflict.
And that leads us to the most powerful and lingering thought the source material offers, circling back to that provocative detail we touched on earlier.
Yes, the cloud brains. It's a concept that truly destabilizes the whole narrative of order and creation.
If the clouds we see every day were once Ymir's brains, and the text implies they are still thinking, that is, they are the source of change, weather, atmospheric turbulence, then the original giant is not truly inert.
He's still there.
In a way. The physical world itself possesses a residual consciousness, a vast ongoing dream or memory of the one who was sacrificed to create it. We live inside a giant who might still be contemplating his own demise, and his scattered thoughts govern our weather.
So the ultimate question then becomes, if the physical world is the giant's body and the clouds are his restless thoughts, is existence simply a slow, ongoing dream of the vanquished ancestor? Is our entire world just the final, massive brain activity of Ymir? What does it mean for humanity, a race created from wood, to live within the residual consciousness of the creature whose death made their life possible? Something to mull over the next time you look up at the sky and see the clouds shift.